Hello, everyone. Glad that you're joining us today. This is a kind of a first for us here at Harrisonville Church of the Nazarene. We're going to start posting some content here on our YouTube page on different subjects, on how to share your faith, on blended families, on parenting, many different types of things, marriage improvement. We're going to try to keep them to 10 to 15 minutes a piece because I know it's hard to find time. So you're going to get about 6 segments on this subject of sharing your faith. As you know by now, probably that's just a real passion for me. And one of the things I have learned a little bit about over the years, if I'm an expert at it, which I probably am not, but if I am, it's because I've learned a lot of ways to not do it over the years. So I want to talk first of all about what I think might be the hardest aspect of this. Especially if you're like me, I don't know how I come off to people, but I actually am an introvert by nature. And if you'd have known me as a teenager, even in my early 20s, starting conversations with people was real scary for me. I was the type, if I went to a party, I'd try to find one person in the corner of the room and just go sit and hang out with that person. So if you're an introvert, sometimes you think, well, I've got a good excuse not to witness. You really don't. You're looking at a person who is I'm probably now just over the course of my life a little bit of both introvert and extrovert. I like both interactions, but I need time to recharge away from people after being with people. That's kind of how you decide whether you're an introvert or an extrovert if you're on both sides of it. But man, early in life I was a flaming introvert. I didn't care if I could have probably lived in a forest with one or two other people. So you're looking at a guy who God has helped a lot to overcome some introverted tendencies that would have held me back in ministry. God can work on our personality. He can make some basic changes. He may not change the overall thrust of who we are, but he can draw us out of ourselves, and God has definitely done that for me. So I want to talk to you at 3 levels today. I want to talk about personal evangelism, community evangelism, and event evangelism. We're going to help you with all of these. So how do we begin to share the gospel with people? I met a guy just recently. His name is Dallas. He's kind of an entrepreneur up on the 30s. He sells music, food, face masks now. I mean, he's just whatever he can do to bring some income in. And I'm telling you, he really is an entrepreneur. I'm impressed by this guy. And I've started a relationship with him. And just yesterday I was up there. He's allowing me to partner with his business to meet people. They're on the 30s. He's there all the time. He is a person of peace. He's always there. Everybody knows him. And I'm taking some money and helping him buy some food to serve the people. And he's allowing me to, through that venue, to build relationships with the people. You know, he's introducing me to people and helping me. And now he said to me yesterday, Pastor, start sending me Bible verses. He said, I don't go to church. It's too commercialized for me. And, you know, that's something important. Dallas was never going to go to church. The church has to go to Dallas, and there's all sorts of Dallases out there. And I told him, I said, man, I'd love to just do a Bible study with you and some of your friends here. And he said, yeah, I would like that too. So I'm going to start going up on Wednesdays to the 30s around 1 o'clock and maybe a little earlier and start doing a Bible study with Dallas. So I want to back up from that now. So what great strategy did I have to make that happen? So I want you to get ready, get some pen and paper, because this is really profound, and you've probably never heard this before. Okay, so when you're ready, let me know. Okay, here it is. I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" That's how the relationship with Dallas began. And then conversations started to happen. And I'm praying, Holy Spirit, help me make this connection. Help me make this connection. I've actually known Dallas for a year now, but probably a year and a half. And just in the last week or so, I prayed before I went a couple weeks ago, God, help me find a person of peace. And God and I led me to Dallas, and you know, this is how smart I am. It wasn't until I was on my way home that I realized, God, you just answered that prayer. But let me give you an acrostic. This is the introvert's prayer, okay? Help. That's an acrostic. Dr. Shaver, who's going to be here for revival September 19th to 21st, gave me this acrostic in seminary. Help. H is home. Where do you live? How long have you lived here? E is employment. Where do you work at? Are you working? L is loved ones. Who's your family? Where do they live? That sort of thing. P is pleasures and pastimes. And this little HELP acronym goes with me everywhere I go, at church on Sunday morning, because I am, you know what, I don't care if you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's a little intimidating, especially when you're out in public, to just start conversations with people you don't know. So this HELP acronym, it's almost like a prayer for me, help, and I start working through this. Let me give you some questions. This is my favorite. You may have different ones that work for you. My favorite is, hey, do you have a church you go to? And that just begins to give me an instant kind of a feel for where these folks are at spiritually. I was having a conversation with a guy at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon about a month ago. They're starting a business here in town, and he's kind of into the whole health and physical fitness thing and eating right and things like that. So I was talking to him about that, about how I work out and how I try to, you know, as a pastor, I got to try to keep myself in shape. It's real easy to eat, and because I'm always places where people are eating, and if I don't work out, obviously I'm going to gain weight, and try to watch my blood pressure and all these different things. So, you know, we're talking about these things. I said, you know what, I think it's really important to pay attention to the spiritual side of your life as well. And I talked about how it's important to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And he gravitated toward that. And then I invited him to watch us online. It gave him a card, and we're going to have some new invite cards for you that'll make that a little easier for you. Another good question is, do you ever think about spiritual issues? Another good question is, hey, what do you think about Jesus? These are just some, and let me tell you, or let me give you another great one. Can I pray for you? I'll tell you what, I very rarely have people say, no, I don't want you to pray for me. Up on the 30s, I meet some hostility every once in a while. I'm a white guy in a sea of black people, and sometimes they doubt my motives and things like that. And sometimes I'll meet some mentally challenged people who are just, you know, they're just not all there. And sometimes they won't want me to pray for them. You know what, that's fine. I just say, no problem. I move on to the next person. I prayed with 3 or 4 people, well, probably 4 or 5 people in about an hour up there. They want prayer. I said, hey, how can I pray for you? Man, I need a job. I owe a lot of people a lot of money. And so I was able to pray with that person. Those are just 5 or 6 ways. You know what? If you do a Google search, how to start spiritual conversations, you will get a lot of good hits. So I'm just going to point you there. Needs-based evangelism. Let me tell you a quick story about Charlie, because I'm trying to keep this to 10 to 15 minutes. I agreed to do a marriage several years ago for Charlie Reed and Tina, I believe was her name. Well, about halfway into it, I found out that Charlie wasn't a Christian, and she is. And if you read the Bible very much, you know that Christians shouldn't marry non-Christians, and now I'm already signed up to do this wedding. I think, man, what in the world do I do? I'm regularly getting myself in messes like this. And so as I'm praying, I just kind of heard the Lord say, well, you better get this guy saved. And I did not do it before the wedding, but I said, Charlie, you know what? I'd like to meet with you weekly. I'll buy you breakfast. And I did that. And we started reading the book of Matthew together. And the book of Matthew talks in the first chapter about living together. This couple had been living together. And it was talking about how Joseph didn't have sexual relations with Mary. And you talk about getting right into a hot topic quickly with a couple that are living together. And Charlie kind of dawned on him that what he was doing wasn't right. And I'm not kidding you, right there at that table at Tim Hortons in Grove City, Ohio, Charlie gave his life to the Lord. And I mentored and discipled him, and they're in another church. They moved somewhere else. They're still in church, solid Christians. It was need-based evangelism, finding creative ways to work with people. I'm going to do these last 2 quickly. Community evangelism. We just went out to Twin Oaks and Chateau Apartments, a group of us, and 2 ladies at our church, Rochelle and Carla Hall, Rochelle Salmons, Carla Hall. We went and kind of kicked the dirt around, and now they're going in and planting seed and watering it for us. And we need that. Everybody has some different gifts. I'm more of a kind of a catalytic, go in and kick the dirt, and then somebody will come in and take care of it after I've made my mess. So we went to Twin Oaks. 4 families came. We gave away a gift card, and while they're there, we were able to actually point to our church. They could see our church from where we were cooking out. We said, hey, we're that brick building, handed out some cards for our church, gave them my email address, said, hey, if you guys need anything, just email me, and we'll do what we can. BlessEveryHome.com. I hope every member who lives in a neighborhood in our church will get on this website, BlessEveryHome.com, and adopt your neighborhood and start praying for it. You're going to be hearing a lot about that in the new campaign that we're going on. But man, there are communities like these apartment complexes and the sports leagues that could be started, or starting a church with your team, your sports team. The sky is the limit. The mobile home parks, I don't know if I said that, apartment complexes, maybe a businessman's group or a businesswoman's group. There's so many things. And then events, last thing, very quickly. We just had an event here at the church, and we passed out flyers. I would imagine 500 flyers easily, and that's a very conservative number, went out from this church. 5 or 6 families came to an event. We're following up on them. So when we give you these flyers, some of our people went to the laundromat here in town. Some people went to apartment complexes. Some people went to mobile home park. I heard about one lady who found a guy at a car wash while he's washing his car, walked up and talked with him and handed him a flyer. 2 ladies, Carla and Rochelle, went and bought some school supplies while they're knocking on doors at the apartment complex, handed out school supplies. You see, there are ways to do door-to-door that's not as intimidating. There's always that moment when you knock and then they open and they're wondering, what do these people want? But when you've got something to give them that's a blessing, you talk about breaking the ice. When my kids were young, I would take them with me when I was doing door-to-door and say, hey, I'm Steve, I'm a new neighbor, my son Steven here, or James or John or Josh. We're just out getting to know people. And having the child with us, just, they kind of got the idea I wasn't a door-to-door salesman, probably wasn't trying to cram religion down their throat, because that's not what I'm trying to do when I'm doing door-to-door. I'm just trying to get to know people, build relationships. Have I had some doors slammed on my face? Sure. But let me tell you, door-to-door, when I left New Mexico, that's where I did a lot of door-to-door. I used door-to-door to start our church. I didn't have a whole lot else. And there were 3 or 4 families in our church because of that campaign when I left 5 years later. In fact, the girl pastoring the church I started in New Mexico came to our church because of the door-to-door efforts I did in the early days of that church. So people tell you it don't work. You're just going to have to politely agree to disagree with me if you think that. There are some bad ways to do it, honestly. So that's our initial lesson. I'm going to be talking to you about how to share your testimony, your story, your glory story, how you came to Jesus. I'm going to share with you in another session how to share the gospel easily from one verse of the Bible, and then when they're ready to pray and receive Christ, how to do that, and then how to follow up on them. God bless you. Hope this is helpful. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.